What's up, 8 Pushers? Welcome back. That Cold War that we keep talking about, it's coming to an end. We're getting really, really close, so hang in there with me. Our next president is Jimmy Carter, president from 1977 to 1981. He's a Democrat, and that's important to remember because Richard Nixon is a Republican, the Watergate scandal, remember that, and then Gerald Ford takes over, and we have the fall of Saigon. And so Americans are looking for a new president, and they elect the nice guy, a peanut farmer who becomes governor of Georgia, his name, Jimmy Carter. All right, so let's get started here. The first thing you really need to know is the Panama Canal Zone. Yeah, under Teddy Roosevelt, we build the canal, we overthrow the government of Colombia and establish Panama. And now we officially say, look, in 1999, we're officially going to give all rights, all abilities of the canal over to the people of Panama. So that's a step in the nice direction. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that important, but it is something that does happen, so I'm making you know it anyway. All right, Camp David. This is important. Like, if you need to know one thing about Jimmy Carter, this is the event, so listen up. What you need to know, in 1948, the country of Israel was created, and the United States, as I've said time and time again in class, is always going to be supported by the United States. The United States supports Israel all the time, from 1948 to today, all right? From 1948 to 1973, there's a series of 4 wars that take place, okay? And then in 1977, Anwar Sadat of Egypt meets with McCann Begin of Israel. And they get so close to a peace agreement, but then it collides and it turns reckless and people start screaming at one another and cussing, and it's bad news bears. All right? So basically, Jimmy Carter says, whoa, we're this close. So he invites them to Camp David, which is the presidential retreat outside Washington, D.C. And he says, you two sit down. Let's strike up a peace agreement. And day 1, it goes okay, day 2. But by day 3, they're screaming and yelling at one another. And by day 6, both parties are ready to get the hell out of there. All right? So they're packing up their bags. And Jimmy Carter being the good politician he is, he has all these pictures for these guys' grandkids, because these guys are old and grandfathers. And he has a picture and he signs it with all 3 of them sitting there at the little retreat at Camp David. And he says, I was hoping that I could sign more than just my name here. I was hoping that I could say that this is where me and your grandfather met and had peace for your country. And so the men kind of like stop, think about that, and one of them actually cries. I forget who it is. I think it's Begin actually cries. And then all of a sudden they do sit down, and on the 13th day, they end up having peace. And it's the important thing you need to know is it's the first peace agreement in the Middle East between Israel and Egypt. So big, huge, important, know it. Egypt, Israel, peace, Camp David, you're good. All right, 3 Mile Island, basically what happens in Pennsylvania, nuclear reactor malfunctions. It looks like things are going to go very bad. We resolved the conflict, but it puts Americans on red alert. Like, we were worried about the Russians blowing us up. It could just be ourselves blowing us up at this stage. OPEC oil crisis. If you remember, OPEC stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, happened under Nixon. They get mad at us supporting Israel, so they cut off all oil to us and jack up the price. Our solution so far under Ford has been, well, just drive slower. And then under Jimmy Carter, it's a little bit slower. He encourages us to save energy, turn the lights off, that kind of stuff. And then investment in renewable energy, so solar power, wind power, that kind of stuff. All right? Also, there's this, like, after Watergate, Americans are just pissed off and angry. And so there's something called the malaise speech. A malaise is when you're angry at stuff. And so the malaise speech and when you get scolded. So it's like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. So Jimmy Carter gets on TV and he says, the problems of America are deeper than oil. They are problems of confidence. Confidence in ourselves, confidence in our government, confidence in God. And so his popularity goes up for a while, but then he fires all of his cabinet members and it goes back down again. But for a short time, Jimmy Carter's like, people like, we didn't like to hear it, but we heard it. And he's right. He's got a valid point. We are cynical. And it's time that we get over that. All right? Cold War abroad, the big important things. Détente is going to be the foreign policy under Richard Nixon, calming of tensions. And so the SALT II Treaty, limits nuclear weapons, of course, and it also leads to the destruction of and disarmament of some of our nuclear weapons. All right? In Afghanistan, out of nowhere, you had détente going on, and out of nowhere, Russia invades Afghanistan, and it ends your détente. And the U.S. thinks that the Russians are there for oil, and the U.S. reacts by boycotting the Olympics and cutting off grain supplies to Russia. All right? Last but certainly not least over here is the Iran hostage situation. Our buddy since 1953 has been the Shah of Iran. Shah is just a fancy word for prince, king, dictator, whatever you want to call it. Tsar, it's the same thing. The Shah of Iran is, during the Iran Revolution, is going to be overthrown, and the guy that takes his place is the Ayatollah Khomeini. And Ayatollah Khomeini says that America is the great Satan. All right? So the U.S. allows the Shah of Iran to come to the United States. Why? Well, he has cancer, and he got removed from power, and so we're trying to help him out. Of course, the Ayatollah wants him to go on trial so they can execute him. So, of course, we're not going to let that happen. Basically what happens, Iranian students are pissed off that we're not releasing the Shah of Iran. They're also angry and fanatical about America being evil in the world. And they storm our embassy. They take 52 of our people, and there's also a handful, about 10 other people that are captured. And they're held for 444 days. In the meantime, the Shah of Iran does die of cancer, but do the hostages get released? Actually, no, because the Ayatollah really hates Jimmy Carter, and the only way that he releases him is on the first day of Ronald Reagan's presidency, because he just wants to, like, even though he could release him, he doesn't want to, just to make Jimmy Carter look weak and powerless. Before they get released, in 1980, there's a failed rescue mission where a helicopter goes down and about 13 Americans are going to be killed. So just another thing to make Jimmy Carter look bad, from 3 Mile Island and OPEC and the Malay speech and all this stuff happening. So Jimmy Carter is not going to win re-election. Ronald Reagan is going to win election. In terms of culture, there's disco and there's Star Wars, all right? Star Wars changes everything, not just because I'm a fan of it, but because new technology is made. Space movies now actually look real, as opposed to the fake stuff that you used to have in the 50s and 60s. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting close. Jimmy Carter, pretty easy president. If you need to know one thing, it's Camp David Accords. If you need to know two things, it's Camp David Accords and Afghanistan. If you need to know three things, Camp David, Afghanistan, and Iran hostage situation. Have a good night, and I'll see you all later.